Army investigators have found the remains of an Army special, Vanessa Guillen, in a shallow grave in Texas. The suspect in her murder, Aaron Robinson, who was also in the military, killed himself as officers closed in on him. However, there is a second suspect in custody, and that is the girlfriend of Aaron Robinson. Cicely Aguilar is her name. Robinson's girlfriend has been charged with evidence tampering, and she also admitted to helping Robinson dispose of Guillen's body. So this is a story that's been developing for quite some time now. There was a lot of mystery surrounding what happened to Guillen, and now, unfortunately, with the discovery of her remains, it's become abundantly clear that she was murdered, and she was murdered in an incredibly vicious and violent way. In fact, why don't we go to the next video that has some details on what happened to her.
The complaint says that suspect Cicely Aguilar's boyfriend, specialist Aaron Robinson, struck Guillen in the head with a hammer multiple times, killing her on base before placing her in a box. Robinson then allegedly picked Aguilar up to help him dispose of Guillen's body. According to the complaint, they attempted to dismember and burn the body before burying the remains.
I mean, this story is just so horrific. And Guillen's family says that she had alleged that Robinson was sexually harassing her, but was afraid to report it up the chain of command because she was concerned that there would be retaliation against her. We'll get to that in just a minute, but I do have some more details on what happened to her. The Washington Post is reporting that Guillen was bludgeoned to death at Fort Hood on April 22nd, near where she was last seen. The remains found were so close to a site searched by investigators 9 days earlier that they unknowingly stood on top of them, one search leader said. Now, Cicely Aguilar was arrested on July 1st in Bell County, Texas. She again is the girlfriend of Aaron Robinson, the soldier who killed himself when officials approached him about Vanessa Guillen's disappearance. A criminal complaint shows that Aguilar confessed to dismembering and helping bury Guillen's body, and she helped officials gather evidence against Robinson shortly before he killed himself. So she's now cooperating with the authorities and giving them the information that they needed to discover Guillen's remains and also to move forward with this case. You know, there was some talk about how Aguilar had engaged in this relationship with Robinson, and in the military, that's actually against the rules because Aguilar was still married and she had an estranged husband. So when it comes to the motive, there are these allegations that they went through with this tragic murder because they wanted to prevent Guillen from reporting their relationship. But the family is saying, no, that is not what was going on. Robinson was sexually harassing her, and he was way more concerned about her reporting the harassment up the chain of command. Now, after witnesses told authorities about Robinson's struggle with a box that had, by the way, Guillen's remains in it, they looked into his phone records and they saw multiple exchanges between Robinson and Aguilar. So you would imagine, okay, well, this is a great opportunity to question Aguilar. They waited a full month before they did that, okay? A full month. So Cenk, I want you to jump in. There are more details to this story, but I would just argue that the family is absolutely right in being angry with the way this case was investigated. It took 2 months for them to get to the bottom of what happened.
Yeah, so the murder itself is horrific, but we actually didn't know those details until now. The real cause of people's concern was, here's a woman who was considering reporting sexual harassment, and at this point it's unclear who might have taken part in that sexual harassment. It might have been more than Robinson. It might have, was it people that were higher up the chain of command in the military? Now, it's not to say that any of those people had anything to do with the murder. It appears that Robinson did the murder, and that seems fairly clear here. And what his motivation was for the murder, we still have to find out more about that, obviously, right? But to me, there's two parts that was the original injustice that people were looking into. Well, one is you got a story about sexual harassment, and it doesn't appear that the military was pursuing it with vigor. especially as the person was missing. We didn't know if she was dead or alive. And so that's a member of the military. We're supposed to care, about them with all of our hearts and passions. And that's what all the bumper stickers say until a young woman in the military goes missing. And then all of a sudden there isn't much action. And so the pace of the investigation seems to have clearly picked up when activists and then celebrities started talking about it on social media. And then all of a sudden, people started caring. And then which leads me to problem number 2, which is, look, I don't know, maybe there's no way of solving this, but it is deeply frustrating, especially in a country that's supposed to be better than this. You know that there's 2 different justice systems. In this case, it's about rank, right? In other cases, it's about race. In other cases, it's about class. But in this case, if it was a general that was missing, it would have been nonstop news. It would have been of the highest priority, and they would not have waited a month before talking to the person who they knew might have information about a missing general. That's inconceivable. Everybody on the planet knows it, right? So it's mainly about power in the different things that we talk about. Whether it's the issue of race, class, or status, it always comes back to power. And unfortunately, Guillén, being a young Latina woman in the army, didn't have much power. And so if she was accusing a higher ranking people of sexual harassment, I don't know if that's a second reason why they didn't more vigorously pursue the case. As it turns out, probably that was not what her murder was about, or at least in terms of if people were higher ranking than Robinson. We don't know that part yet. But the bottom line is, if like here, I'll give you one last example. Only 1/3 of the rape cases in America are solved by the police. Now forget prosecution, that's different. Just solved by the police, only 1/3. Only 2/3 of murder cases are solved by the police, unless it's a cop who was killed. Then 100% of the cases are solved. So that goes to show you that there is a power dynamic here. And if you're powerful in this country, you're gonna get royal treatment even in death. But if you don't have power for whatever reason, God help you, because the authorities likely won't.
And one other thing I wanted to mention is you're absolutely right. Power has a lot to do with it. And this also has a lot to do with a longstanding problem within the military that, Cenk, you and I were talking about on a regular basis on our show back in 2012, the issue of sexual assault and rape within the military. That problem was never solved. It continues to exist. And there are both men and women in the military who have been victimized, brutalized by other members of the military. And because of the way reporting works, things aren't done, like necessary actions aren't taken to prevent these types of things from happening again in the future. So as I'm reading about the families' interpretation of what happened and how Guillén had opened up to them about the sexual harassment, I couldn't help but remember all of those stories that we covered and just feel this internal rage about the fact that the more things change, the more they stay the same. The fact that this continues to be a problem in the military is maddening, to say the least. And I do want to go to the family now, because of course they've been speaking to the press. They're angry at the way this case has been handled, and they wanted to really draw some attention to what Guillén was alleging prior to her being murdered. Take a look.
Their investigation is also focused on whether she was sexually harassed before her disappearance. Guillén's family says Robinson, who died by suicide Wednesday morning, sexually harassed her and accuses the army of covering it up.
They have lied to us multiple times, and that's one of the lies. My sister was sexually harassed multiple times.
The thorough investigation into sexual harassment will continue until it's complete.
In a press conference yesterday, Army investigators said Robinson was not in Guillén's chain of command and that there is no credible evidence so far he or anyone else sexually harassed her.
How are we going to believe their own internal investigation on themselves?
The Guillén's family attorney, Natalie Kawam, says the Army is hiding something.
We believe that he murdered her because she was going to report the sexual harassment.
Guillén's family says they're fighting to keep this from happening to anyone else in the military.
It's a disgrace that they haven't done nothing at all to help us. That's why we demand a congressional investigation to be done.
And Cenk, Myra Guillen, who is her sister, says she felt if she spoke, something would happen. I now realize everything leads back to them harassing her at work. And when she says something would happen, she meant that she would be retaliated against. And that is definitely the type of perspective that we've heard over and over again from women who had served in the military, who were also victimized through sexual harassment, sexual assault, or rape, and felt that there wasn't enough done to protect them and for justice to be served. It's part of the reason why the hashtag I am Vanessa Guillén was trending on social media over the weekend, because women felt the need to share their stories of what they experienced in the military.
Last couple of things here. First of all, in terms of her reporting sexual harassment, sometimes people who don't believe it say, well, look, in all the high profile cases, there's a famous politician or celebrity, and maybe somebody's looking to get attention or hurt someone politically or get money. In this case, there's no such thing. Why would Vanessa Guillén make up sexual harassment if the only thing you could do was get her in trouble in the military, which often is the case if you actually report people up the chain of command sexually harassing you? She's got absolutely nothing to gain, and she's apparently very scared to report it. So the military saying, "Oh no, it didn't happen," afterwards, not very convincing at all. And look, she was afraid to report it, and she's now dead. So there's some evidence that there was an issue there. And am I convinced the military, who didn't interview a potential witness for a month, has done a thorough investigation of itself here? And do I take their word that there was no sexual harassment? No, not at all. I don't believe it. And so, and that leads to the larger point. We accept things ranging from sexual harassment to outright rape all the time in certain institutions, and it is maddening. So the famous example everybody knows, it's in every movie, it's in popular culture, it's real. If you go to prison, we find it perfectly normal in America that you're gonna get raped. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. Other countries do not accept that. There's no reason for it. There's tons and tons of guards, but we allow rape in prisons nonstop. And nobody ever does anything about it. It's grotesque. And so, and the second place where it unfortunately happens all the time without much consequence is the military. Anna's right, we've been reporting these stories for now over a dozen years. And I remember during the Bush administration, female soldiers getting raped in Iraq while on assignment there, oftentimes obviously brutally, and then there was eventually government hearings about it, but no, the military didn't believe them, even though there was overwhelming physical evidence, and almost never does anything about it. And so there's a culture of keep quiet and just take it, and no one should stand for that anymore.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.